Hi, everyone. This is episode 9 of Weldon Witness, Bookworm, Film Geek, and Friend. So, usually during my first segment, I will either talk about something that's related to what I'll be talking about later, which is obviously book and movie reviews, or I will be talking about something that happened to me or just advice on how to be a book blogger, how to be an author, or how to get back in shape for the strike. For those who are still getting back in shape, I hope that you're doing pretty well. So for this time I have a big story to tell you about, and it mostly has to do with yesterday, but like I've told this story to so many people and so many times over the past 3.5 years. It's insane, really. I feel like I'm just repeating the same thing to you over and over again. So if you're a friend of mine, then chances are you're already going to know this. But at the end, there's something new that happened. So in life, there are some forms of media that end up going missing, like a YouTube video that might be deleted that someone decided not to save because it was clouding up their memory. Or did you know that Jackie Chan's very first film debut was in 1960, if I'm correct, and it was some sort of 20-minute movie that got lost because like nobody kept thorough records. Well, I haven't done anything on film that's been like that, but for those of you who are about my age, then you might have heard, if you watched cartoons, about the cartoon Monster by Mistake. I realize that I've been looking straight ahead and not at the camera. That's how unprofessional of me. So I didn't watch Monster by Mistake as a kid. It started as a Halloween special in October of 1996, and I was born in November of 1998, so there's a big bit of a difference there. But it finally became a TV series in 1999. There was a second season in 2000, and there was a third season in 2003. And altogether, they made 52 episodes. And I guess I thought about that a lot because it was a 3D cartoon. And obviously, Toy Story was released in 1995. Everyone knows that. But Monster by Mistake was one of the first 3D cartoons out there. But it was about a boy named Warren Patterson. He was 8 years old, and during the first episode, he and his bigger sister Tracy go into this old Amberson house, which is what it's called, and in search of a toy car that got stolen from a bully named Billy Castleman. And they accidentally end up setting off a spell from a special book that is correlated with this jewel called the Jewel of Fenrath. And while they're trying to release some sort of demon, or they don't know he's a demon, but his name is Gorgul. He's a creature that was trapped in a ball. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm not explaining the actual story. But basically, Warren gets cursed, and ever since he turns into a 7-foot tall blue monster every time he sneezes. And well, I didn't watch it as a kid, as I think I said. I only watched like 1 or 2 episodes, but about 3.5 years ago, I began thinking about Monster by Mistake again. I've been thinking about revisiting old cartoons that I might not have watched, like Hey Arnold, or maybe even All Grown Up, or Ben 10. But I looked up Monster by Mistake on YouTube, and there were only 3 videos. One was its theme song, the pilot episode, and a season 1 episode named Haunted House. And ever since then, I've been looking for that cartoon because that was no coincidence. There were no other episodes, despite the fact they made 52 episodes. And I liked what I saw for the first 2 episodes. I felt like they focused on their storytelling more than most cartoons. It had just a great premise, in my opinion, and it had some very adorable characters, especially Johnny Be Dead. You see, in the first episode, he was like a ghost. He's still a ghost, but he was kind of the owner of the Amberson ruins. He plays the trumpet, he cracks jokes, and after the house is destroyed, he lives with Warren and Tracy ever since. I feel like that's a very original idea, having a ghost of a friend. So anyway, over the years there have been some episodes that have come up here and there, like some full episodes in Hebrew, just like 10 of, or no, more like 6 of them. Then I found a website called Amoeba TV that had the entire first season of 13 episodes. But basically, Monster by Mistake was one of the reasons that I started journalism, because I was shy, and eventually I started caring about this cartoon so much that making phone calls and asking questions felt risky. So, but I finally did a little while back when summer had just started last year, and I found, and thankfully, Monster by Mistake is a Canadian cartoon, so that really helped. The original distributors were called CCI, Cambium Catalyst International, and so I sent them an email asking if I could talk to Arnie Zapersky. He was one of the executive producers of the show and still works at CCI. What I was told by the receptionist was that they actually no longer own the rights to Monster by Mistake. And well, I've been concerned about if they have it archived, because it ended back in 2003. That was a long time ago. But I found out a few things to prove that it's actually been on file since at least 2010. I won't bore you with the details, but they said that actually Monster by Mistake is now under the rights of a company called 9 Story Media Group, like the letter 9. And they didn't save any files when they gave them the rights, but I was told that I can be assured it's not lost forever. And the thing about 9 Story Media Group is they have a policy about really not letting anyone in. 9 Story is the company behind cartoons like Camp Lake Bottom, Peg Plus Cat, and the new Magic School Bus Rides Again, which, by the way, stars Kate McKinnon as Miss Frizzle. But my point is that I tried everything. I even made a YouTube video about my whole journey, which goes into a little bit more detail about what I just told you. And so I felt like after making 2 phone calls asking if I could just come in and talk, or if I could have an appointment with one of their I forget his line. It was like a tech guy at 9 Story. But after being told no and never responding to any of my emails, I finally went there yesterday. I got a ride all the way to Toronto there, and I was a wreck. I was so nervous I would mess this up, but I found out that this sort of thing was unusual for 9 Story Media Group. They'd never had a visitor like me, and never a situation like me. So I was able to talk to someone other than the receptionist. Like they recognized the effort I put into it. I feel like everyone should be taken seriously if they take the proper effort. And so right now I'm awaiting to communicate properly. I basically just have 2 questions. I want to know if they have it on file, and they said that they probably do have it on file since they own the rights. And 2, what we should do, and I meant we as in me and the company, to get it back. Because as of today, 36 of the 52 20-minute episodes are missing. And that just bugs me to all over the place, because I love animation and I loved its story. But more to the point, right now I'm in big anticipation, and also my uncle Jim and one of my best friends ever, my best friend Heather Snowden, they came with me for this. Jim offered to drive me, even though I didn't have anything to give him in return, and they're amazing people. They're irreplaceable. So right now I'm doing my best to keep in contact. What I'm hoping will happen is they either release them on DVD or put them to Netflix, which I know costs money and there are legal matters. I'm sort of hoping I can put them on a hard drive, but we'll see what happens. Right now I'm on edge and really thinking about Monster by Mistake really every hour. So that's that. And next we're going to go into books and movies. And I hate to turn negative after some positive news, but this time we're going to be delving into some best and worst territory. I'm going to be for today talking about some of my least favorite work since I started book and movie reviewing. So it's going to be a bit negative, but I'm going to be cheerful talking about it. Okay, right after this music break. Okay, we're back. Thanks for waiting. So, to conclude what I was saying about Monster by Mistake, the reason that I was tense is because I was so anticipating it. When you're a journalist, you should keep your cool, but when you are trying to get something for years and years, it really seems like everything counts. And before we go into some of the worst books I've ever read, keep in mind that in the constructive criticism business, which I'm unprofessionally in, I understand that I might be a bit ironic when it comes to bullying because I don't really take constructive criticism that well. Chances are I might fight you on it. Just I can't help it sometimes. Sometimes I can help it, but other times I write something and or draw something and I love it so much that no one can prove otherwise. And I've been a critic for 3.5 years, and I've said some pretty harsh stuff to some authors, and I never mean to hurt their feelings. And if they have a problem with my criticism, then I am more than willing to talk to them about it. I would be flattered. This has never happened to me, but I would be flattered if I hated an author's book, reviewed it, and they wanted to meet me for lunch. Coffee or pizza would be on me. But for starters, I'm going to talk about what some of these books have in common. Admittedly, it might be unfair since some of them I might not have started on good terms. Some of you who have seen my show might remember that that I explained that when you start writing a book, then it's good to start with a lot of writing on the first day, like maybe 20 pages, to show that making the rest of the book is possible and that it can take you out of a writing slump. It's kind of the same for books. Sometimes you just have to start them in the right attitude, and then reading the rest of it after you put it down first won't seem like much of a chore. Some of these I might have started on bad terms. And a lot of these books have romance issues. Some of them are books that are sequels that really disappointed me, and maybe there are some flaws that these books have that I noticed that are just so obvious that it might be amazing that they made it through publication. And admittedly, bad books and bad movies are kind of good in their own way. A world with just good criticism would be boring, you have to admit. And admittedly, some of these books have helped me improve as an author. They've shown me what not to do. So for starters, the first book I'm going to mention is unfortunately one that I don't have. It's called The Glass Arrow by Kristen Simmons. It's a standalone dystopia about a world where these two kings fought over this one girl, and it brought the world into chaos. And as a result, girls are seen as dangerous, as nothing but slaves. It's basically we're jumping back in time to an era that is completely insane, an era that thought, what were we thinking? And I was okay with that, but it's not really the what that matters, it's the why and how. And we're put into the feet of a girl named Aya. And this, I don't like to bring spoilers, but this happens in the prologue, so it's not really. She ends up captured after trying to run, and most of her family ends up dying, and she's very sad, but I really wasn't, because we don't really know these people, and yet she mentions them all throughout the book. And then she ends up captured, and there's and the first thing that she says in chapter 1 is, I've been in prison for a certain amount of days. I read a book called Shatter Me that I enjoyed, and it felt like a carbon copy out of that. And basically, I'm sorry, but this character named Aya, she ends up trying to escape her captors so much and fails so much, it gets painful. And she does end up kind of purchased. That's how bad a world this is during this ceremony, even though she tries hard not to. I kind of saw the twist coming. But you see, this is a nasty world, and she is told that she could have the opportunity to have a house and be fed, and she thinks for a second, maybe that could be good, and then she thinks, no way, what was I thinking? And I get that maybe that's how I would think at first, but this is probably the best thing for her. I wish that the book had explored that possibility a little bit more rather than shooing it off, because it did sound okay. And it was also just boring, considering it was a story about trying to escape a horrible world. And there's also a bit of a romance section with her and what I think is called the Silence. I read this book 2 years ago. I don't remember everything about it, but like their romance was, well, I didn't have a big problem with it until like two-thirds in, when they break up, and then it's resolved automatically. And after everything, Kristen Simmons decides to end it in a way that it's like one of the worst ideas I could ever have thought of. It completely rips off of Romeo and Juliet, and I felt like it felt like if it wasn't there, then it could have left me hanging, just wondering in my imagination what happened to Aya. It could have been mysterious, but just everything I didn't like. Next up, I have a book called Fallen by Lauren Kate. This is a pretty famous book, and it was made into a movie just last year, or this year, I forget. And it has 5 books: Fallen, Torment, Passion, Rapture, and a sort of spin-off called Unforgiven. And it's the premise alone is all right. It's about a girl named Luce, or Lucinda Price. You see, she has had these shadows follow her forever, and this incident involving the shadows ends up burning a house down along with her boyfriend Trevor, and she ends up sent to a reform school called Sword and Cross, where there are only about 80 students worldwide, and I mean throughout this entire school, and it's filled with cemeteries and churches that were redesigned for classes. It's a horrible, suffocating place. But she meets a boy named Daniel, a mysterious boy that she can't help but feel like she knows him from somewhere. But I won't go much further other than that she tries to discover the origin of this person, but my main flaw with it is Luce is in love with the wrong person. There's a boy named Kim who gives her all the attention, all the nice smiles, everything, and yet she thinks about this Daniel character so much, even though there's nothing special really about him, and he shoos her off constantly. He even dismisses her so woefully, and yet she still can't stop thinking about him. Whenever she's with Kim, she says, okay, don't think about Daniel. And that was a big distaste, because I get that there's a difference between love and attraction, but personally, if I was attracted to someone and that person shooed me off or embarrassed me, then my attraction would change. At first I thought it would be good, because this is honestly a book that has less words on it than The Glass Castle, so therefore we can feel the pages flipping easier usually. But also, there's really not much of a story other than Luce thinking about Daniel at least 3 times every chapter. It feels too much like a prelude, and right away, the one thing, I'm going backwards here. This Sword and Cross institution prevents communication from the outside, except for one phone call a week that lasts 15 minutes. And Luce has her phone taken away from her, and and when her mom visits her a week later, she keeps asking, why haven't you answered your calls? And I don't like a corrupt education system. What I wanted Luce to do was explain how her phone got taken away, so that maybe her mom could interfere and force them to give her phone back. That would be something that I would have done if I wrote this, because it seems logical and it would have made me feel good. But instead, Luce just talks about these cute guys that she barely even knows. I kept thinking, come on. Including, she even mentions like his shirtless neck, even though it's a neck. And when she ends up in the arms of a boy that she thought was dangerous just moments ago, she then says, I felt safe in his arms. It's a romance that I think gives romances a bad name. If you liked it, then that's perfectly great. The next I'm going to be talking about is a book called Stolen, Heart of Dread. This is the second book in the Heart of Dread series by Melissa De La Cruz and Michael Johnston, and I'm 90% sure that they're husband and wife. It's a fantasy about a world called, let me think, it's a world that's filled up with garbage, so much so that pretty much the only thing to eat is tofu. And it talks about these 2 characters named Natasha Castell and Ryan Wesson, or Nat and Wes. And it's a book that goes between them constantly for every chapter. and it's about how Nat is trying to reach a certain land, and while she's working at a casino, and it's actually called Trash Country, come to think of it. And she needs Wes and his crew to guide her there. And in return, she'll give them this special locket that seems to have a connection to this world. But it also has some Drakens and some old spells and a sister of Wes's. But for the first book called Frozen, which was well, these covers are very good. And I don't know if you can tell from the screen, but there's a rainbow glint in this. But the end of the first book gave off wink after wink that this book would be better. It wasn't. Right away, Nat just disposes of her dragon for this short moment. Well, more like not disposes of. It's more like her dragon is taken out of the picture for a lot. And I'm saying draken like that's how it's spelled and therefore pronounced. But also, I just felt like that was because they were out of ideas to put the dragon in there, even though that was something I was hoping for. Hi. And, well, what else is there to say? I also didn't really remember these characters too fondly, and it was when Wes says, despite the fact that we know he has a crush on Nat, he says by around the 2/3 that he won't have any problem leaving her behind as they are off to this special palace. I thought, no, no one would say that. And also, these characters get captured too many times. They end up saying like stuff like surrender was the only option. There's like nowhere to go. These characters kiss while they're under siege, and not even romantic kiss. Like they think about it too much. In fact, actually, kisses when in a line of fire, they can be good. I'm saying that like all kisses in Line of Fire are bad. They're not, but this one was. And its ending it really didn't have a cliffhanger that got me interested. There are 3 more to talk about, then we'll move on to movies. This is called Cherub Maximum Security. It's the 3rd book in this series. Cherub the Recruit, the first book, which has an orange shirt, it was one of the first books I had read during my career. In fact, I think I read it before I started Weldon Witness. And I was sure I was going to like it at first, after I read the first chapter, but then 3/4 in, I knew that I was going to give it thumbs down. This is a brutal life that this character named James is living. He ends up joining this firm called Cherub, where it's a spy organization, where basically the logic behind it is that adults are not going to trust other adults when they have a question by the door, but if it's a kid, then they'll open the door and then the army can swoop in. I thought, what's wrong with that? I love the Spy Kids franchise, so why not this? Well, everyone in this book except for James I wanted to punch, and even James sometimes when he just felt sympathetic towards some of these people. Like there are abusive teachers. He has a sister that he treats well, but she doesn't. She treats him like trash, and he has a crush on someone that's really just she's sickening. And so I gave the first book 1 star out of 4, and that was generous considering there was a climax where the police promised they wouldn't hurt someone so they would come out, and then they lashed out at them and like flung them to the ground. I wouldn't be surprised if they had broken bones. But this 3rd book, it really upset me. James had to infiltrate a prison, pose as a prisoner, and break out the son of an FBI most wanted woman who supplies weapons named Jane Oxford, and her son is named Curtis. Like right away, there's James's sister Lauren and her friend Bethany are on a trip like in the Arctic, and they're trying to get to an objective. It's like some sort of cherub scavenger hunt, and a polar bear attacks them. So they have to leave their igloo or whatever it was, and then go out and try to destroy it. But then they realize the polar bear was like plastic or fake, and then they say no. When there's a snowstorm, the officials say polar bears are cuddled up in caves. They should have listened to their history more. I meant no. Polar bears are starving creatures right now. And they probably have great noses. If there was someone like two girls right there for the taking, they would have pounced on them. And also, I just felt like the idea of breaking out breaking out Jane Oxford's son so that they could capture her. I get that might be something that the government might one day do, but I don't know. It makes me feel extra sad, especially when we're with Curtis for a while. He's very depressed. He's sentenced to like life in prison for for something that I think the media had overdone or the government was too harsh on. I felt like the book should have explored more about leaving Curtis behind out of jail, because he was a really innocent character. Let me tell you that this is something that the Cherub books break. If a character gives you a pina colada, don't hope that they'll go back to prison or be punished. But that's what the Cherub books are all about, and the ending is just a literary screw you. Hi, there's a sweet little kid right there. I wanted to wave to him quickly. Sorry. Hi. Bye. So next, hi. He knocked on my door. It's nice to meet you. Don't worry. I'm sorry, but I love it when that happens. I just do. So let's see. We don't have a lot more time if I want to fit in the movies, so we'll quickly talk about this book. It's called Linger, but it's the second book in a series that started with Shiver. I haven't read this book yet, but I really don't want to. Shiver was kind of like Fallen in that it had a romance that didn't really make sense. I mean, it's kind of like a Twilight for the Bella Jacob fan club, about a girl named Grace who loves the wolves of her town that come around in the winter, and one of them is actually a werewolf that can turn human but is under a curse. Grace really loves wolves. Even when there's a reported wolf attack and they want to be exterminated, Grace would put her life on the line for these wolves. And admittedly, I have gotten an interest in pit bull dogs. I've loved dogs since I was a little kid, and I guess that I can understand where she's coming from a bit. But honestly, there's a sentence where one character that we don't really like says, "You ran over my dog," to her brother or something. But losing a dog, which I've had to go through, that's the saddest thing ever. But she says it like she's annoyed. Like, a dog is like your best friend, someone who you'll always treasure and who will always treasure you back. So it shouldn't have been dismissive like that. And other than that, just the romance, I really didn't want to turn the pages. So the last book I'm going to be talking about is The Sin Eater's Daughter by Melinda Salisbury. This is a universe where, Twila is living in this castle, and her mother is off the charts fat because apparently to rescind for a sin, she has to eat a gigantic meal every once in a while. I don't remember much of it. That's how unmemorable it was, other than some very stupid terms that some people say, like one character named Merrick, I think it is, says that Twila was the first kid he ever saw when she was 6, even though Merrick is Twila's age. And so I think I get what he was saying, but that was kind of incorrect. And also Twila ends up saying to another character, "Marry you or die." That's a tough question. I thought, oh, come on, this character is not that bad. You didn't have to go that far. And also, there's also a hint of pedophilia and some incest in this book too, but it kind of shrugs it off too much. And it's also kind of sad because it involves a ruler wanting to kill her sons for the glory of it, and it had an okay cliffhanger, but then it settles for an epilogue that demolished my interest. But admittedly, this book cover is gorgeous. In fact, most of these covers are gorgeous. Like, the next time I publish a book, I would want something as beautiful as these. So next we're going to be talking about movies after this short music break. Thanks for listening. So, admittedly, I don't give many Fs. In fact, it's very rare for me to give anything lower than a D on my website. That's the critic I've kind of grown to. In fact, this year, I've seen about 35 movies, and only one of them is a D. All the others that are lower are like C minuses. I don't know. I was just playing a hand gesture and I don't know why. But that's probably because these movies had set the bar very low. So I've come to to realize that generally movies I don't like are movies where I'm not interested in what's going on, or something will come up in the film that makes me not want to watch it. You probably know what I'm talking about. Also, I've come to realize that as important as the ending to a book or movie is, because the resolution can determine how you in the end feel about how everything came together, the beginning is important too. Because the first few minutes of a movie or first few pages of a book and how much you enjoy them can be telltale on how much you'll enjoy yourself later on and how long the book or movie will seem. And most of these that I'm going to mention started out bad and continued bad. So the first one I'll be mentioning is The Departed. It has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I think Richard Roeper named it his best movie of the 2000 decade. But I gave it like a 0F. I don't know where all the good reviews came from. I could barely tell you about what it was like other than Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon up against each other with a swearing Mark Wahlberg that kind of tears out the character that he played in my all-time favorite movie, The Italian Job, right out of the water and into the swamp. Like, this Mark Wahlberg character is unbelievably horrendous. He's meant to be very funny, but I just thought, Mark Wahlberg, you're better than this. And also, I think that one of the reasons the things my F came from are some death scenes that happen. But this, I'm not going to go into spoilers, but let's just say a person is thrown off of a building, and we see like the whole story of it. We know that this guy had time to run somewhere, or even run up the stairs to hide better, or for all I know, he could have run up to the roof and then jumped down via the windowsills. It would have been painful, but he would have survived. He had more than enough time. And also, the ending is like a big bloodbath that it was so lackluster, and it like, as I said, I think that the endings are very important. This ending, no. The next one I'm going to be talking about is Aloha. Now, I almost never just DNF a movie or book, but for Aloha, I couldn't get through it, and logically, a movie that I can't get through should have an F probably. But yeah, Aloha was basically a romance about a man played by Bradley Cooper named Brian Gilchrist falling for a native Hawaiian played by Emma Stone, and having trouble with his ex, Rachel McAdams, and something to do with a satellite. But like right away, the movie's beginning is a very boring Hawaii tune that sounds like a lullaby. And so right away I tried to keep my attention up, but I couldn't. The next I'm going to be talking about is the 50 Shades movies, including 50 Shades of Black, the Marlon Wayans spoof, which I guess I'll be talking about first. Like, I'm not sure if I should be talking about these movies because, yep, William J. McGinn has seen all the 50 Shades movies so far. Like, and I don't know, whether to laugh at myself or scald at myself because, like, I'm sorry, but I tried to give all of these movies a chance. I just don't like them. For starters, for 50 Shades of Black, it's as you might think it is. It stars Marlon Wayans as the title character, Christian Black. I'd heard from somewhere that he made this because the creators of the original movie wouldn't cast him because of his skin color. But this movie settles for just for bringing all of the dark colored people stereotypes right to you. Here's what I mean. Black people are smart people. They can count, and they can go more than 2 or 3 minutes without swearing or yelling, but you would not know that from this film. That's how much of a bad name this movie makes them out. Like, the first scene has Christian Grey in the original movie sprinting or just jogging for an early morning. This one has Marlon Wayans' character just stealing an old lady's backpack, trying on a tie, and walking through without paying it, and the alarm going off, and stealing a car. And then when he meets Hannah Steele, played by Callie Hawk, who unfortunately I think, according to her Rotten Tomatoes page, was like, she was a prodigy in high school. She got to go to college when she was like 16. I wish she didn't star in this movie. There's so much more that she could have done. But Marlon Wayans' character, she says that Hannah has a weird nose, and then when she asks him a question, he asks, "Well, how do most black people get their fortune?" Hannah's answer is real estate. He says, "No, drug dealing. I slapped my head. Just no." And and also something that the original movie, and I guess the book material also does, is it really underutilizes Jose, the Jacob Black spinoff character. And I felt like there was so much chances to make this movie a spoof of its unintentionally funny source material, but it just settled on so many movie references that just, when put into perspective, just made me depressed, and there was no effort to put in an original story whatsoever. There are some great spoof movies like Melissa McCarthy's Spy, and even Austin Powers, that try their best to come up with something original, but this movie was awkward, and almost never was there anything even original to go by. And also the 50 Shades original movies are also head slapping. I mean, these movies are well made. They're well shot. You can tell that they put some effort into them, except for the writers, because it just plays on all your agony. And I just saw 50 Shades Darker like a month ago, so my perspective on this is more fresh, and the original movie was just so forgettable. But Anna and Christian had broken up a little bit, and they broke up entirely, really, or so we thought. And I thought I'd give it a chance after Anna is given these white flowers to Christian. He says, "Good luck on your job." She almost throws the flowers away, but decides not to because she's conflicted. I thought that was very storytelling. And these movies, honestly, they have an interesting storytelling soundtrack that's decent on its own. But then when Christian and Anna meet up at a museum, like after a few hours, she takes him back with open arms without any thought, really. I thought, oh, come on. Like, I can tell that they both were hurting. You could have shown that a little bit before we jump right back in. And also the sex scenes don't work either. I mean, not just because we don't ship this couple in the first place, but because they get in the way of the plot, and so we want them to end. And also they're just too much. They resort to it too much and overcloud the actual story of a stalker or a former ex of Christian's. We're trying to focus on the story of him trying to battle his inner demon so that he can be with the girl he apparently loves, but the movie keeps resorting to these "are you kidding me" head slap sort of dialogues moments. The next I'm going to be talking about is Hail Caesar. This was a movie that was universally acclaimed by critics but hated by audiences. The slogan for it is "Lights, Camera, Abduction." It's where George Clooney's character, played in a Caesar production at Hollywood, gets abducted by the writers, hoping for some sort of ransom. And it's also filled with characters like Scarlett Johansson's character, who's in the movie poster but is only in 2 minutes, and Jonah Hill's character, who's only in there for 1 scene and 1 minute, and also just here's what I mean. Here's why I hated it. The set designs were gorgeous, but we see these characters put something into George Clooney's drink straight away, and we see them eyeing him like, drink it. And so when he collapses, it's no surprise, and there could have been a moment of surprise, really, and mystery as to how he fell asleep, in my opinion. And also, when he's abducted, he isn't really brought up in chains, and like, none of these characters are really racing to try to get him back, but they do pay a ransom in a briefcase, and a briefcase that they have to hold together by a belt, and that belt ends up still at the scene like a few days later. I thought, with that sort of bag, they would have to get that out of there fast, but an actor from a movie finds out about it and trails them. And then the people who actually abducted him, they try to get away on a canoe. I forget if they were captured or not, but the boss ends up going to a submarine with the bag. But his puppy jumps up and into his arms, which forces him to drop the briefcase, not into a volcano or down a cliff, but just into the water. They were in a canoe, actually. Why did I just say that? But actually, here is why I say it. They say, because the briefcase is right there, it's floating. Is it going to sink? Is it going to sink? It sinks. But but that was like $500,000 back then, so they could have gotten themselves a little wet and got to it. But no, they instead just depart, and the main character just says, "Why did you do that, baby boy?" to his dog, and then just goes on the submarine. Like, come on, any logical sense. And this isn't like in a movie or in the movie. So altogether, just I got sad. Next is like a direct to DVD or something. I don't know what it was, but you know the Hamlet production, Shakespeare's longest play. I'm almost done. Hamlet is played by David Tennant in this, and well, it's 3 hours long. We saw it for English class. If I didn't see it in English class, I would have turned it off by the 20-minute mark. Like, these characters sound like they are reading off some pages that are shown to them behind the camera, and these characters are wearing boring clothes in a boring setting. It's completely black and white. Hamlet doesn't even wear anything interesting, and these characters, they're also reading the lines like they don't know what it is, they just like the way it sounds. And it was just it kept on going and going and going. It felt like a school play gone wrong. It felt like a school play done by some bankers who don't know who Spider-Man is. And also, here's one of the kill points in Hamlet. The ending wasn't fast-paced, and Claudius, the evil ruler who tried to trick Hamlet so many times, Hamlet realizes what happened. He brings the sword to Claudius's neck and tells him to drink the poison. Claudius just shrugs like, oh well, and drinks it and collapses. And actually before that, for Gertrude, Hamlet's mother and his to-be, I think, wife, he says, do not drink, and he doesn't even beg, like, do not drink, which I thought was it when I read the play. She decides no, but he doesn't do anything to stop it, and he doesn't even care that she drank it. His actor just says, all is done. Basically, this stuff makes no sense. It was dumb, and it was dumb and not even a good dumb, and a boring and not even good boring. And the last movie I'm going to be talking about is a critically acclaimed film by David O. Russell called American Hustle. And one thing, remember how I said that a movie can sometimes not make me care about what's going on? Well, American Hustle didn't, in that it made me lost immediately. It's about some sort of real life ab scam. The first thing it says is some of this actually happened. And we see Christian Bale's character trying to do his hair, but there's no music for it. We don't know who this character is. He looks kind of like a weirdo, so there was nothing that got me hooked from the beginning. And then there are these arrests and some of these parties, and Jennifer Lawrence's character, who was the only one I was really interested in, she's delayed a lot, and these troubles that these characters are facing, like they were all over the place, and the actual scam over the top. I forgot about it instantly, and it was 2 hours long. Okay, so that's all the movie and book reviews I'm going to be talking about today, and all of them were negative. And I hope you enjoyed listening to it. And next week I'm going to be a lot more positive. And you can always contact Riot Radio at DCSI Riot Radio and wish me luck on finding Monster by Mistake, because I need all the support I can get. And well, have a good day, night, evening, whatever time zone you're at, and I'll see you next week. I'm William McGinn. Peace out.